This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. We have a very special edition today, which I'll go into in a minute as soon as I get all my blurb stuff out of the way. So don't forget to like and subscribe and review us. We love reviews. And also, if you have an author or soon new things that you want to recommend to us, you can email us at drinkingwithauthors@gmail.com and we will hunt them down. It'll be amazing. So my amazing co-host today, of course, dressed to the nines and looking better than anyone ever should on a podcast, is Danielle Orsino. And for the first time on Drinking with Authors, we have a gaming company, Ninth Level Games. So welcome.
Yay!
Thank you.
Very exciting, very exciting. We always like it when people think we're authors, so it's great.
Hey, there's a lot of written word. We're going to get into this in games. A lot of written word. Okay, so first let's talk about what we're drinking. Oh, our sponsor is Skunk Brothers Spirits. Coupon code DWA10. And that goes along with, so I went to Wendy's for dinner like a boss. And it actually took like 45 minutes to get through the drive-through line. So that's been worth it. But I have lemonade, and then I put the Skunk Brothers Lightning. I'm almost out of lightning, which is moonshine.
That's a little corn whiskey.
Nice.
Yeah, it's corn moonshine. And it literally, every time I drink it, it's like, zap, right down my system. So when I talked to one of the brothers, Scott, who owns it, I was like, what do I drink this with? Because this just seems dangerous. And he's like, put it in lemonade. So this is my new thing. I put it in lemonade.
Nice.
That's what I'm drinking. I'm going to get really drunk. Oh my gosh. Look at, whoa, what's happening?
Serious.
Okay. Danielle, quick, you got to say what you're drinking because there's magic happening over here.
Oh, I'm boring. I've got my barefoot fruit Scotto and apple, and I've got my unicorn goblet to go with the theme. So I'm all roiled out.
Okay,
Love
that's
it.
never boring. Okay, so Chris, do explain what is happening over here in your quadrant of the screen for those that are listening and not watching the YouTube.
I was about to say that people can be they could do it in either, right? This is video and or audio. I decided since we were going to do this that I was going to treat myself. This is a bottle of the Glenlivet Founders Reserve. American oak scotch single malt. I have a large rock in my dealer's glasses.
Look at that.
I just opened this bottle and we're gonna see what happens. So
that is exciting. Okay, well then, you're gonna get toasted. This reminds me of when I was on with Jonathan Mayberry. We both went through about a fifth of whiskey. It was entertaining. He literally says that we can be used as a bad example because it's true. It's true. Hashtag truth. Okay, partner in crime down there at Ninth Level Games. Let's talk about what you're drinking.
So I am drinking. I took some gin and I put it in this glass container with a couple pineapple spears. And then I threw some. Chris is laughing because I don't drink a lot. So when I do, I'm like, oh, I'm going to make something interesting. So I threw some orange blossom water in there and some ginger beer. And then I poured it over some ice. And that is what I'm going to be drinking.
I'm just laughing because it sets up the dynamic between Adriel and I, which is, we both go to the extremes. They're just very different extremes.
I was going to say we've got full on whiskey, and then over here we've got. So I added some orange blossom water. Like I'm listening to this, and I'm like, wow, that's like something fancy you get, and then you have a pineapple spear, and it's over crushed ice, and I'm like, let me get back to my moonshine.
Put some moonshine and some lemonade.
I feel very wow. I do not feel nearly as eloquent as I did moments ago.
No judgment. There's no judgment. It's all about
judgment-free zone.
You invited us on to a show called Drinking with Authors to talk to us about things that we love. and said, while you're doing that drink, I was like, well, I deserve a nice bottle of scotch for that. And
I
I'm
love
drinking
it.
a lot of it. So
Yeah.
I love all of the creativity. Okay, so let's start. For anyone out there, either of you, whoever wants to take this one, talk about ninth level games. Who are you? Where did you start? Where did you come from? What's going on?
I'll talk about where we started, and then Adriel will talk about where we're going.
Good.
Yeah.
I love it.
So Ninth Level
Teamwork.
Games is started in 1999, and it was started by myself and a gentleman named Dan Hansen Landis. We met the first day of high school in September 5th, 1988, because I was talking to another nerd about a Dragonlance novel. And Dan was like, are you guys talking about Dungeons and Dragons? And it was like a bunch of 13-year-olds being very excited to just meet. And we've been making role-playing games since 99. And our first big game was called KOBOLDS Ate My Baby, which was a parody of role-playing itself. And then in the 2000, like around 2013, with the onset of crowdfunding, it was like, we're going to start making some board games and we're going to do some different things. And secretly in the background, we had been working on some very exciting kind of the next level of where we think role playing is going. And so we went from being a company that just made tiny zines to we've now had a couple of $100,000+ Kickstarters, and we're starting to become a real company, and we have some focuses that Adriel will talk about.
Okay,
Yeah.
and now to the focuses.
Yes. So right now we're really focusing on our role-playing game lines and using the system that Chris referred to, which is the Polymorph System. And it's a system that Chris had been working on for years, and it's awesome. It's a 1 die per player role-playing system. So basically you can be a D4, a D6, a D8, or a D10, and you will only ever roll your die. You will never have to do math. And it's a system that's easy to learn and play, because our focus is on what world can we exist in, right? So Chris and I have a thing where we're like, with role-playing games, there's got to be something that you can be and something that you can do. And Polymorph lets us just put whatever we want on top of that system. So our current large focuses are Chris's Mazes Fantasy Roleplaying. It's like when you're a kid and you're like, I think D&D is gonna be like this. And then you start playing and it's like, that's what I imagine. There's a lot of math, but still having a good time. But Mazes is the quick, like, you are in the dungeon immediately. And Chris is showing on the screen, he's showing Kobolds Ate My Baby, which was the first game 9th level ever put out as a zine. It uses only 6-sided die, but we'll be kickstarting it next year, early next year, to translate it to Polymorph. And then we've got a line of games that are in the awesome world. So it starts with the Excellence, which is a game where, regardless of gender, everybody's a princess. You're a princess of something specific. Like, you can't be the princess of music, but you could be the princess of acid jazz. And we've got 2 more games for Awesome World coming out later this year.
Danielle looks like she's ready to play.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, all right, yeah. What
You literally froze like an ice statue while you're watching that.
I was like, yeah, I'm like,
I know.
How do I get? Back now.
I'm
Give
like,
money.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So we're coming out with Horseshoe Academy, where you are a horse going off to boarding school and learning about your magic and making friends. And Nancy Druid, where you are druid detective scouts solving forest mysteries. And then separate from all of that, we've got our fun shot, which are one-shot RPGs. They can either fall under the more serious side, Savage Sisters, Rebel Scum, Good Dogs. Good Dogs is about being dogs in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Rebel Scum is about being cool action figures in space punching Nazis. And Savage Sisters is basically like Xena Warrior Princess. You're like barbarian women trying to save the world. And then Business Wizards, which actually goes in the Kobolds universe, you are wizards working in wizard corporations and you're just really trying to get ahead. So we've been really focused there, and we do still do card games and board games, but we've been really focused on RPGs, so much so we've got a project that will be kickstarting in September, where we've been working with some therapists to develop a game. It's still Venture Village.
It's called Venture Society.
Venture Society, right? Sorry. We changed it partway through the year. And it's really about emotional learning and helping therapists and teachers and parents help their kids through role playing.
The team is Heather Neal is the designer. And then we have two therapists, a doctor and a professional therapist, and one educator. So we've created a super fun game that kids will enjoy playing, but it can be directly used by educators and therapists directly in their lines, and they don't have to do the work in order to get it into their curriculum. They can actually just say, "Oh, this meets these SEL requirements," and they can hit to it. So it's fascinating, and it's really we're really excited for it. And everything that we're doing, we are really kind of, except for Mazes, which is definitely a more traditional role-playing game. We're just kind of very cutting edge rules. But the space is the tradition. A lot of our games are focused on trying to create ways to tell newer stories for different people, creating things to gateway experiences, or reaching out to traditionally underserved parts of our market. Right.
So, okay. As epic gaming nerds, first of all, Danielle's like blown away. You got to watch the YouTube
I'm like,
look on her face because she's like, I need
because
all
this is bringing back Vampire the Embrace, which is what I played. So I'm like, I'm like, I was the Vampire Embrace girl. So I worked at Moondogs way back when, and we had
You know what's super funny? Is that's one of those experiences that I've been talking a lot of lately. There was a thing in the 90s
making a comeback
where a lot of queer people, a lot of women came into the hobby because of Vampire, and there aren't those opportunities. Even though gaming's getting much bigger, it's far more mainstream. It's still what are those gateway opportunities? What's that thing that's going to pull you in? One of the things that we love about the excellence is watching the eyes on like a little 10-year-old that sees it and is just like, oh yes, I want to be a princess. This is exactly what I want to be. Like, can I have that book right now, please?
Yes.
And that's an amazing feeling for us. So
there wasn't a lot of, I remember Vampire the Embrace, and it pulled a friend of mine, Jen, in, and she was not a quote unquote geek nerd. Like when I pulled her into it, that got her into it. And then there was the very short-lived Fox show, which we won't get into because it just hurt all of us. But that was the game that
can we talk about the Fox show for a minute?
Oh, please. There's so few people that remember the show.
We remember
Kindred the Embraced. I think there may have been 12 episodes. It was during that time frame when it was like Star Trek The Next Generation and all the stuff, but it was Kindred the Embraced. And my friends and I just love but how can we be together? You are Bruja and I am Gangrel. It's like
Cash and Rose. There
so
you go.
Good. So good.
It was the best. It was,
and of course, so many of those actors have gone on to just have actual careers.
Amazing.
I feel like Kindred the Embrace was very much like some of the early DC movies.
Yes.
Like they didn't quite get it. Like they didn't. Like you're
They
so
tried.
you're so close, but you're just no, you didn't get it. But again, that's when Interview with the Vampire and stuff like that became popular. But way before like Vampire Diaries and some of this other stuff went, this
There
is
was
how
Kindred.
you do it. Underworld. This is how, although White Wolf went nuts over Wonderworld. Underworld. I just said Wonderworld. That's fine.
That's
It's
okay.
fine.
We're gonna let it go.
It's fine. It's actually funny you say that because we joked before we started, but I started gaming when I was 13, which was approximately, just in case anyone's doing math, 36 years ago. So just so we can do some math on that. And
We're of an
there was-
age, just so you know.
Yeah, we're real old.
No.
but
Wisdom.
Yes.
so much wisdom. But it was interesting because this was still when D&D was like you worship the devil and you're doing like the whole stigma that went, yeah, exactly, with it. And what was a joke for me and the few female friends that I had that actually really gamed was that a lot of female gamers were girlfriends or something that were asked to show up at a game and then were terrible and ruined your night because they wanted to play like a little pixie fairy that didn't do anything and it was so annoying and just like
And you can't do that because I'm playing the pixie fairy.
yeah,
So.
there you go. But it's interesting, I will say, and this is what I loved when we met you guys. We got to meet you at the ALA conference, and what was awesome to me was D&D at 13, like you had to figure it out. Let's just talk about Thaco, which anybody listening who's not a gamer is like, what the fuck is she saying? No,
I still don't get it.
yes, I
We
mean
had armor class 0 is a very easy concept. It's just math that's hard. It's not Thaco's fault.
well, it's funny because you were talking about that and talking about the games and seeing your games, and it literally, right when you said we use one die, made me go straight mentally to GURPS, which by far is the worst math game in the entire freaking universe. Like I played GURPS a couple times, and I know I'm going to get hate mail from GURPS lovers, but I rolled up a character. It took like 4 hours. I don't understand this. I've rolled up hundreds of characters. We played a combat against kobolds that literally took 3.5 hours. And I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore. Like I just
No.
We have a friend who is a young person. They're a TikToker. Her name is Irene. And she's the biggest GURPS fan in the world. And still just loves GURPS. And she's always like, I know it's GURPS. It's GURPS.
It's GURPS. Well, it was funny because you talk about Vampire and Vampire the Masquerade. I've played every iteration of these White Wolf games. I even played Wraith, one of my favorites personally.
Still love Wraith.
Changeling is where I'm at.
I love them, but I was excited when those games came out with you're only using D10s. Like it became pretty brilliant. You have D10s, that's all you have.
When we say you only play with one die, we mean you only play with one die. Like you are literally, you have a die and you only roll this die. That's it.
That's amazing.
You don't roll a bunch of dice and add them together. Or I mean, you roll the die, you look at your sheet. That's it. That's the whole game.
That's it. Okay.
So
one of the goals of this is to make it so that it's imminently crackable by anyone. Like I don't have to explain. Like when we do character creation and we do actions, we actually have a video where I explain how to play Mazes, our most complicated game, in 5 minutes. Like, and it's like clock on the wall, like the video, we do 5 minutes and
ready, set, go.
It really does work, right? Like, and it's like, oh, we got it. I know how to play the game now. And that's kind of our goal with all of our games because, there's always going to be a place for these giant 300-page games. And there's gamers that want to do that and they want to spend their time. And there's plenty of people that are making that content. Our focus is on the extreme opposite of that, right? Whether it's because you don't have enough time or because you have a mixed group or because you have new players. And one of the things that's really weird is when we talk about like Vampire being a great gateway for people, the gateway now is really streaming.
Yeah.
When someone goes and sees a streamed game and then they sit down at their table to try to play it, the disconnect is huge.
Yep.
Right? Because those are professional actors that are great improvisers, and they're barely using the rules. And if you read the rules and then try to do it, it's really, we're trying to create games that feel the same when you play them at your table, when you play them at a convention, or when you watch someone play them online. And that's like a big driver for us.
So
That's a good point.
Origin stories. I love that you went from talking about a Dragonlance novel, big Forgotten Realms girl on this side, right?
Nice.
Big Forgotten Realms girl. So you are literally living nerd lifestyle, correct? Like you got to be a continuous nerd through your life. So
Oh yeah.
how did you like for realsies though, how did you pull that off? Because there's a lot of us that ended up in like very corporate jobs, you know. My beautiful Fae queen over here is a nurse.
I have had very corporate jobs. I still actually maintain I do consulting on the side. I do, 10 to 20 hours of consulting a week that, pays for the mortgage. It definitely helps. We've had a lot of corporate jobs. The big thing recently has been, as we develop ninth level and ninth level becomes more successful, it's already paying our health insurance, which is really nice. It's starting to actually, it pays for Heather's time. She's the CEO. We don't have paychecks from it yet, but it's allowing us to do things, and it pays for a lot of other things. But from a nerd lifestyle piece, one of the things that's interesting is, using your hobbies to pay for the things that you do, or turning your hobbies into a side gig can be, for some people, destructive, especially if you aren't monetizing those correctly.
Yeah.
We used to joke that ninth level just existed as an excuse for Dan and I to buy martinis, right? Like, as long as ninth level bought martinis, I was good. And then it was, as long as ninth level's paying for the hotel. Oh, well, as long as ninth level's paying for dinner. Well, as long as ninth level's paying for a pretty nice dinner. I would like a nice dinner. Can we have a nice dinner? We were just at Gen Con, and we had taken the team out, and one of the people on our team, not used to really going out and eating, and was literally having an anxiety attack because of the price of the steak. That they weren't paying
was
for.
it GG?
No, it was Bug.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Bug was like, just order for me because I can't look at this price anymore. And it was like, hey, you've been working for us for 5 days in this horrible hellscape that is Indiana. You deserve this, right? And we can afford this, right? Because we made money at the show. We can afford this. So that line has been actually interesting. And things that I like to buy role-playing games, and I like to back Kickstarters. So they're just part of my job now. Makes things a little easier.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you say that, because of course normally we talk to a lot of authors on this show, and you guys are authors because you're creating it, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But I think it's interesting what you said about taking your hobby and monetizing it, because even if it's something you want to do full-time, run a gaming company full-time, that's what I want to do full-time, right? This is the dream. Like, you have to understand the correct estimation of effort to get to that, and what does that look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the comparator?
Is
right?
it possible to make a living doing it, right? And what are you making? When for many years we just made zines, right? And when we made zines, we never made enough money to do anything. Our books cost $5 retail.
Yeah.
The fact that we're making hardcovers now is a different situation, right? Like there's enough. A good example of thinking about it is more like the music industry than it is about the writing industry. Because as game designers, it's more like being in a band than it is being an author. Because you have to manage all of these extra pieces, but there are opportunities to go on tour, right? Like we can go to shows where we make more money than if we sell it through distribution. And there's like different opportunities like that about our ways to kind of generate money. Now, on the other side of it, we're a publishing company, right? And we actually do a bunch of different things as a publishing company. And one of those is pay people to write. But we're not paying anyone enough to write for that to be their job.
Yeah.
They would need a whole lot of jobs in order for that to be the case. We don't pay ourselves enough to write for it to be a job.
But one of the things.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. Well, one of the things we've also done, which helps sort of support the company, is that if we have a design, and this happens for us more and more often with our card games and our board games, is we'll pitch those externally, and we'll have other companies put those games out, so that we're still like keeping our like shop sharp. That's not an expression. We're still like
make it an expression. You have orange blossom water. You can make any expression you want.
Rock it out.
And we're selling some of the games that, while we could produce them, it doesn't make sense for where we're positioned in the industry, and that kind of helps keep us going as well, which is super useful to us.
No, I think that's true. And it's interesting you say that, because when you talk about writing, you have to go, when you're publishing, you have to go outside of the mainstream. You have to do the circuits, go on tour. You have to do this marketing. Like, one of the biggest things we talk about is like, it's kind of like you could create the greatest role-playing game in the entire universe, but if nobody, but if nobody ever hears about it, ever, it's not going to sell. It's true with anything. If nobody hears about it, if you don't know how to position it, if you can't in 5 minutes explain how to do it or give an elevator pitch, which was brilliant at the start of the show, on these games, it makes a huge difference. I think it's fascinating. So going back to the zine days, right? Going back to the zine days for a moment, because we're going to have to take a break. Yeah, Scooby-Doo. Did you, so you said you have external people write, but you guys have to be coming up with the overall concepts and what to write and the direction and stuff. Did you write them before you were paying anonymous people to write games?
Never anonymous. Everybody gets credit. Everybody gets credit.
They're anonymous to me. I don't know who they are. So
we started out writing all our own stuff and just publishing our own stuff. And it wasn't until really very recently where we were like, there's more things that we want to make than we can write ourselves. There are also things that we're interested in that it would just be better to have someone else write it, because they have a better so we have a book coming out next year called Sentai and Sensibility, about Regency women who have to turn into giant robots to fight monsters. And we don't actually know enough about Sentai or Regency literature to be the people to write that. So we had enough to frame it, and then we brought people in to write it.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
And we definitely, we still, like, there are projects where we're like, this project we have to write because we don't want, we like it too much to let someone else write it.
It was really hard for us to like actually get to a point where we could let somebody else write something.
Yeah.
I gotta assume it's like being in when like Journey gets a new singer, like you have to be like, well, you can't sing that song. But it was like, well, no one's gonna do that as good as us. But that's just not true.
No, that's not true. Did you watch the documentary? I watched the documentary on that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm Don't Stop Believing. I will run from other fucking rooms when that song comes on.
The documentary about the guy from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing, right? Like, like, and that's
crazy.
That's part of that like piece, which is like, there's just so much in the games industry, especially, is there's kind of a it's almost like there's I guess there's like three tiers. There's kind of an entire like art space that is uninterested in capitalizing or monetizing what they're doing. They pretty much exist on the internet. They're focused very much on games for them. Like, I bought a game at Gen Con and it was like one of 35. Like the print run of the game was 35.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. You know, which is not a sustainable business model.
No.
But it's a perfectly fine thing for your art project.
Yeah.
And then at the other end of the extreme, because we're not even going to include Dungeons and Dragons, because that's its own corporate.
That's its own beast.
Yeah, that's its own. But there's like a couple of large scale companies like Renegade or, you know, that put out a bunch of games and they have licensed projects. So you have those two ends. And then there's just a whole lot of companies that are in this middle piece that are all, you know, all of us are just trying to grow our market share and create. And we're not really competing with each other, you know, like,
it's like, as people who talk to authors all the time, right? Like, yes, there is competition for, like, you know, whatever publishing contract exists, but the competition isn't about what's being written, because like everybody brings a unique perspective to what they're writing, and so there's room for, like, you know, 5 games about werewolves or something, but they're all different games. The question is just like, who's getting the contract from the bigger publisher to make that game happen.
It's true, and it's also like in comparatives, readers, you will never give a reader enough books. Like, no matter how many books you publish, you will never give a reader enough books. They will read more than you will ever do. The same is true with games. Like, of course, we do have the diehards where we're in a campaign and we're in it for a long time. But I get, you know, what I love about your games too is that it's not like, the one thing about being a gaming nerd, especially when we were in our teens and 20s and 30s, but when we had a certain amount of time, you know, but that you could dedicate each week to doing that. You know, it was very different before you have kids, family, job responsibilities, where you could stay up all night running campaigns. But the difference is too that you can't, with all of those kind of games that put you in that sort of situation, if somebody's missing, a lot of times you're screwed. Like, the fighter's missing, great, we're not playing that, we need to play something else. And I think it's great. And I also love that your games are set up for younger people, because not that younger people aren't smart, but some of the, especially, you know, we were joking about the box set D&D, which was fairly simple to run, or even first, but you get into, like, we joked about Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance, and like, how the hell do you keep up with the difference between stuff and know all the rules? And there's always that asshole who sits there and goes, that's not how that works. Like, we all know that asshole.
Oh, we do.
We do. It was super fun for me recently with the D&D movie.
The new one
trailer.
Or the previous one?
The trailer for the new D&D movie, Honor Amongst Thieves. And nerds complaining, well, you can't do that in the game. And it's just,
oh my God.
1, it's a commercial. 2, shut up. Right? Like, you know.
You're finally getting a good movie, please.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
We have Michelle Rodriguez as a barbarian. You lose. Your argument is invalid. I don't care what you're saying.
What's funny about this too is there's so many gay movies that are out there that are basically D&D fucking movies without the words D&D put on them.
Yeah, Fast and Furious.
Can we just start there? Can we start at Dragonheart? Can we start at Krull? Anybody remember Krull?
Of course
I love Krull.
Do you know?
How about this? We had the Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, if you want to talk D&D cartoon, I'm your guy. I'll go get my figurines.
Chris is.
I have the D&D cartoon set.
I have that.
I feel like we're gonna out nerd each other. Let me go get my shit.
Yeah.
The Dungeons and Dragons cartoons are my favorite things. But I just learned a super fun thing about Krull that I never heard before, which was a Krull was they originally supposed to be the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Really?
They wrote it on spec and they got it signed, and then 20th Century Fox or whoever made it went to TSR and was like, oh, we have this script and we want to make this Dungeons and Dragons movie. And they were like, oh, no, we're going to make our own movie. And so they had to change everything. And so that's how we get this film that makes almost no sense. That is very clearly a Dungeons and Dragons movie.
That's it, clearly a Dungeons and Dragons
Dungeons and
campaign.
Dragons
We're
movie.
chasing a moving fucking tower that moves every day. There's a wizard that's terrible. There's a giant,
And there's also Liam Neeson as the thief. Like he's just like literally, it's like, what do you do? I steal things.
Yeah.
It's all there.
That movie still holds up. I don't even want to hear about it. There's laser guns in it. There's all kinds of things. Best movie ever.
And then of course the glaive, which is a real word.
Yes.
A glaive is a real word. It's a real thing. It's a type of polearm. It is not a Chinese throwing star made out of 7 parts.
Yeah, just for the record, I want to tell you how bad that wounded me. And then we're going to take a commercial. We're going to leave on this note. When I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, I want a fucking glaive. And they're like, okay. And they showed me a picture, and I'm like, no, like a glaive, like a glaive.
You know,
and they're like, no, this
like
is legitimately a glaive. Then, of course, because there wasn't the internet back then, somebody went and got the fucking Encyclopedia Britannica to prove to me that that was a glaive and that I was wrong. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break at Erica's unfortunate heartbreak in her first D&D game of not being able to have a glaive. And we'll be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
Okay, we're back. Eventually we'll share with the listeners the braid my hair story, but that's for another time.
It's quality. It's quality. This is now, it's apocrypha. People will be like, did you see that? No, you never heard that story. You gotta
go look at that episode. The braid my hair story.
That's for the 500th episode, the special show.
Oh my God. Yes. Okay. So let's wind time back because Chris, we heard your origin story. My darling, we need to hear your origin story. Where do you come into the nerddom and then 9th level games?
So, when I was a kid, I have 6 uncles and 1 aunt on my mom's side. And when I was a kid, my mom was in fashion design school and I lived with my grandparents and some of my uncles. And they would play D&D. And I was a 5-year-old. So, of course, they were like, no, you can't play this. But I was always, oh man, it looks so cool. Fast forward to me being like 10, 11 years old. My dad, who loved the man, has a history of content that is too adult for the age of the child that you're giving it to, gave me like the original black and white Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic. And so I saw the role-playing game, the original role-playing game that came out in the late 80s. And I was
I played Cat Burglar.
Oh,
Burglar
yeah.
that was a cat.
Yeah, I was a burglar that was a cat. I was Cat Burglar. Okay, continue on. That's how nerdy I am. I also played the Cars role-playing game. But anyway, moving on.
Nice. So that was really my intro to role-playing. Like, I had no one to play the game with, but I read that book from cover to cover multiple times. And somewhere in college, I ended up, I was like dating this person and we wanted something to do together. So we started playing the old Lord of the Rings CCG. And from there, I started playing Magic. And I ended up meeting Chris and Dan and Heather. And like, we were all, and our friends were friends. And as the years passed, we just like started making games together. So at the point where sort of ninth level had hit a bit of a lull, Chris, Heather, and I were working on a game called Schrodinger's Cat, and we were like, let's kickstart it and see what happens. It did really well, and we were like, let's do this. So that's kind of how I got involved there. But like the entire time, you know, I was just sort of nerding out over on the other side, like by myself, until I got to that point where I had those friends and I was like, okay, now we're gonna LARP together and we're gonna play Magic together and we're gonna play tabletop
You have to explain
games.
LARPing because people listening on this show are not as nerdy as us with our duct tape and phone. Explain.
Fair. Okay, so LARPing stands for live action role playing. There are multiple kinds of LARPs. There are parlor LARPs where you're not really going to have actual physical combat. They're typically going to take place indoors or at a big weekend thing. That's where you're going to find like your Pride and Prejudice type LARPs. There are boffer LARPs, which you get swords and you get to hit people. And
this
then,
is the kind of LARPing that Adriel did.
Yeah. And then there's a whole world of LARP based off of those White Wolf properties. And instead of hitting people with swords or not having combat, you're playing rock, paper, scissors to see who does what in combat. So I've done all of the above type of LARPing, dressed in costumes, and it's a lot of fun because it's basically like role playing, but you're wearing a costume and you're somewhat physically engaged.
And occasionally you hit somebody with a stick.
Yeah, which I really like, and I get in trouble because the boys that I've LARPed with have been like, you hit too hard. And I'm like, suck it. Too bad for you.
Yeah, so my last LARPing experience involved me and everyone else that was playing Vampire the Masquerade getting kicked out of the hotel that we were in for a convention because one of the people went screaming through the lobby with a quarterstaff twirling it.
Oh no.
And other people didn't know that was going on.
No, of course not. It was just us. You know, they said we could do it because it was part of the convention. I happened to be a vampire at the time, and like all of a sudden I hear this screaming and I'm like, literally I thought to myself, we're gonna get kicked out of here. And sure enough, go sailing by and I was like, yep, that's the hotel security coming to get us.
Okay. Very important question. Danielle, Erica, what type of vampires are you? I gangrel all the way forever.
Oh, you see, I got in trouble.
I play a Malkavian.
Nice.
And I also play Zamichi.
I do like the Samichi. Those are my boys. I'm into the Samichi.
But I have a brilliant Malkavian character that is a teenager that has to be listening to the same Britney Spears song over and over again. And if it gets interrupted, it's pretty much the end of the world.
I have
literally the end of the world. She goes nuclear.
Yeah.
I have not played I played literally, this was when Moondogs was still in business, and we would go into a cemetery. Oh my God, right now Carmel is like waking up and they're like, oh, it was you. I'm gonna get busted so bad for this. We would play in a cemetery. I mean, age is gonna show, probably 20 years ago, if not, no, longer than that. 30 years ago we played. No. Yeah, it was like
Vampire isn't 30 years old.
It was a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was close. It was like right at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we played in a cemetery. We didn't know what the heck we were doing.
And you're the reason we were in the newspaper all the time for Satan worshiping.
I'm serious. That's what we got in trouble for. Like, they really thought there were satanic things going on in Carmel, because we were the idiots dressed in a cape. No less, it was a cape. This is what I'm saying. We were not elegant LARPers. We would put a cape on, fangs, and we would run around, and we had our lycanthropes, and we were running around in the cemeteries. And then I think we went up to Wesleyan in Connecticut at some point.
Okay, so
yeah, we were that group.
Adriel, we lost you again.
Is this better?
Yes.
It is, you know what it is when your hands go up, somehow you're blocking signal.
Weird. So Wesleyan,
Keep your hands down.
my dad went to school there. One of my very good friends went to school there. I used to live in Middletown. That is where I engaged with many of my vampire and changeling LARPing friends. So nice.
Yeah, we would go up there, and we would decide that we were going to encroach on the territory, and we would try to go up there and get our asses kicked on a regular basis because we didn't know what we were doing. You know, we would actually bring the manuals up and be like, okay, and we would be looking through them because we just didn't. We were not the most elegant players, so I'm trying to remember. I think my friend Jen still has the original manuals. She kept them.
Nice.
From them. We really didn't know. We were playing, and I remember having those damn capes with the collars that came up to like here. Yeah, and running around. But yeah, we were in we were in the Carmel Cemetery running around, and we got in trouble a couple times. So I couldn't tell you exactly what like faction I was, because I just remember Jen complaining that she thought Julian was really hot. So she was part of that. Whatever he was, she was like, yeah, the actor, Julian, he was hot. So that was hers. And we would fight over
from Kindred the Embrace, Julian.
Yeah, like Ventro. Then they had
he was
Ventro. He's the guy that was on Heroes, NBC's Heroes.
Yeah. They switched. Yeah, they were doing, he like later went on, but
yeah. I mean, that's years later. I mean, because that show was in the late 80s.
It was like before, you know, they did the whole when Fox was trying to be edgy, edgy.
Fox was just trying to have anyone watch anything.
Married with Children, I watch that shit all the time. What are we talking about? I'm Married with Children comics.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know those existed.
They exist, my darling. They exist.
There's a surprisingly huge fandom to Married with Children.
Well, we all wanted to be Kelly, and we wanted, we all still
want to be Kelly.
Or date Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all right there. I mean,
no one has ever said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to be Bud. No one.
No.
No, because the people that would like to be Bud are Bud.
Are Bud, right? They don't have to be like Bud. They're just like, oh, I like Bud. And you're like, yeah, we know, buddy.
We do.
Yeah.
A little pat on the head. Thanks for showing up there. Okay, so I want to ask this question. What is the funniest / weirdest thing to happen in a game that you remember? Like during role playing, what is one of
we have so many stories about funny and weird things is because our flagship title for so long has been Kobolds Ate My Baby, which is a game of utter ridiculousness. And the concept of the game is you are tiny little kobolds, tiny little doggy monsters who are trying to eat human babies and failing at it awfully and horribly. You're like a bunch of, it's like an elevator full of Wile E. Coyotes, right? Like, so, but to just tie it into our entire walk down memory lane with original vampire titles. There was one year we do this event at Origins in Gen Con. Origins in Columbus, Ohio in the summer, called the Kobold Midnight Massacre. So what we do is at midnight on one of the nights of the convention, we get like 100 people to all play the game at the same time in a room. And it's so loud that for 20 years they've been pushing us all around the convention center. Like you have to get further and further away from where people are because you're so loud. And they had pushed us. This was like the 3rd or 4th year that we had been doing it. And this is in the early 2000s. So it's like the 2001-ish. And they had pushed us into the area where they have all these LARPs going on. And one of the LARPs they have going on is this big Vampire the Masquerade LARP. And these guys come over to us and they're like, hey, we're playing in the vampire LARP, but our characters are these Malkavians that are totally insane. So in the Vampire the Masquerade LARP, we want to use your LARP rules because we made our own fake LARP rules called Kobold the Charades. And so they literally played a Kobold the Charades LARP inside a Vampire the Masquerade LARP with all these Malkavian characters now pretending to be kobolds. And when all of the other vampires would interact with them, they would be like, ha ha, eat your baby, ha 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 ha. And it was, we got to watch this insanity. We got to watch these very pretentious nerds lose their minds because these guys weren't taking it seriously enough. But in all ways, it was for me, it was just, we were so far down the rabbit hole. It was just
This
great.
is like a fourth wall breaking a fourth wall. I like that.
Yeah, if Deadpool turned around and told us that whole story, it would make perfect sense.
I love it.
My favorite moment is our friend Graham Gent and I were running excellence games for children and their families. And there was a player, this little girl, and she's so cute. And she's just like, I want to be baby princess. We're like, yeah, you go to, and one of the
keep phasing down on us.
Damn it. Okay.
You got it.
How's this? Better?
So for the people at home, in order to understand, the first question that you ask in the our excellent princess role-playing game is, what are you the princess of? Are you the princess of monster trucks? Are you the princess of birthday cakes? Are you the princess of penguin marches?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so this little adorable child is baby princess because she loves babies. And you need to describe what your crown looks like. And she says, oh, great. Yeah, my crown is going to be baby head. It's just like a circle baby head.
You phased out again. We keep losing the audio in the middle of this amazing story.
Hang on 1 second.
God.
Okay.
No. So the punchline is they play this game and this little kid is playing it completely straight because she's having the best time. She's like, oh, I'm princess of babies. I got all these babies on my head. But Graham and Adriel are having an existential crisis because this is the most horrific thing. And the kid just keeps saying things like, oh yeah, I just like grab one of the babies and I throw it. It's just like, no, what are you doing?
It was there.
That is literally the thing nightmares are made from. And I think you don't break the fairy princess. Okay, Danielle, what is your weirdest gaming experience that you can remember?
Probably having being chased by the Kent police, because we were trespassing. We decided to LARP on Hamilton Fish Jr.'s property during a blizzard.
Oh no.
And we didn't know it was
Hamilton
his property.
Fish Jr.
Yeah. He was a senator. And we didn't know it was his property. And it was during a blizzard. Let me back up. It was during a blizzard. Nobody would be out. We didn't know it was his property. And we decided to do something with sleds. I don't really remember exactly what the setup was. We weren't drunk. Let me just back up. We were not drunk. But we decided to sleigh ride, somehow involved in it. I think it was like one of those, we're stuck in an Arctic tundra and oh my God. And we decided that it was going to be on this property, which we did not know was his. And lo and behold, here come the Kent cops. I think it was the Kent cops, actually. Yeah. And they come pulling up in the middle of a blizzard. And what the hell they were doing out in the blizzard, I don't know.
Well, they got a call about people on a property with a sled
and capes. And we got hauled in. And we all got hauled in for it. And having to make that call and explain to my dad why we were there. And one, that we were not drunk. No one was high. This was actually a role-playing thing.
That would have been the
not a
first thing
fun
out of my
call.
dad's mouth. My dad would have been like, are you pretending to be a vampire?
Yeah, it was not. Normally, if I was dressed in my Wonder Woman outfit, that would have made sense to him.
Everything
That
would
would
be-
have been
yeah.
like, that would have been like, oh, is she dressed as Wonder Woman? Got it. But the fact that it was a blizzard, I could not. So it was more like, where is she and what was she sleigh riding? And then when he found out everybody was like sober, nobody was high, he was like, okay. And they were like, well, it's on, you know, a senator's property. He was like, and what makes it so much special? So that was
So
the whole
special.
thing. And then he was like, role playing. And it was just the whole explanation of, no, this is not sexual. No, nobody's drunk. And he was finally like, I don't want to know anything. He's like, just get in the car. This is not going on anybody's record, right? And then it was the same thing. The cops were like, role playing? Like, how do we explain this?
What do we put in the report?
Yeah, like,
I don't know how to put this in a box. I don't know what box to put this in.
yeah, like this is the worst the kids are doing. And half of them weren't following rules. They were just like, you know, so it was just one of those, and it was the usual, like, just get out. So when I wound up working at Moondogs a couple years later, my dad was just like, okay, like, what am I going to do with this? It was just, and now here I am sitting on Drinking with Authors in a tiara headpiece and, you know, crystals on my face. And once again, my dad is not surprised by any of this.
Living your best life.
Living the best life.
Not surprised.
So
So, you know, once you've been taken in for trespassing on a senator's property, the rest of it's really just, it's uphill. It's uphill from here.
see, I think I have funny actual role-playing experiences, but we used to do what we called Midnight Madness, which was treasure hunting with paintball guns.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Ooh.
So you'd go out in teams and you had to get things like go into a club and get a stripper to take a Polaroid with you. Like that was part of the treasure hunt, like just obscure things, nothing damaging, nothing dangerous, but you always had to go get like a very obscure things. And a lot of it was photographic evidence, so we weren't stealing and stuff. But this was before cell phones existed and GPS.
Yeah.
So you used maps and you had to drive around. Well, one of our group decided that it would be really cool because at the time it seemed really cool. They dressed in all black, you know, and maybe had paintball guns that were not, you know, that looked like black
Were
guns.
the paintball guns to attack the other teams?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because you get taken out if you attack the other team, and maybe we got pulled over by the Albuquerque Police Department and ordered to get out of the car and put our hands down and lay our weapons aside.
Things happen.
That maybe hypothetically this happened. It took quite a bit of explaining.
Allegedly.
There was some explaining that I had to, because they thought we were going on a shooting spree
Oh,
and paramilitary. Now, I want to reiterate, this was like 20.
That wasn't funny until you said the word paramilitary.
military.
Well,
That's where it
because
changed.
that's what we look like. We had a bunch of black, you know, and then black hats and like.
Right, yeah, a bunch of nerds wearing black shooting fucking paintball guns.
Yeah, but this was way before this was before Columbine. This is before a lot of the stuff that happened. So it has happened, and never do that now. But that was my getting. Now we didn't get arrested, luckily, but the cops were not happy because they had gotten calls about these groups of people going around in guns. And so we won though, because technically, like, we should have just won the treasure hunt when we all showed up at the IHOP later to reconvene on who was the winner of these particular games. And so we had, anyway, but here's my favorite, actually playing a game. It was a White Wolf game, It was Wraith, and in Wraith, for those that don't understand, you play a person who's trapped on the material plane because they're unfinished. They died, but they're unfinished in what they're doing, so they're trapped on the material plane. Just explaining it for anybody. And I have these friends that were Renaissance we're on the Renaissance Fair. They're actors, they do plays, all this stuff. So playing with a bunch of actors is insane. But we were sitting there, and one of the guys was playing a actor whose crowning achievement was he was the first rebellion person killed on Star Wars at the opening scene where Darth Vader comes in. Like, that was his acting credit. He wasn't really that, but that was his character.
His character was the guy that gets shot wearing the weird hat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So another character, she was just adorable, but she played a zookeeper, and she was mauled and killed by one of her lions. So we're gathering up the troops, and she shows up, and he has just been killed in a horrible car wreck, right? So and he's doing the British accent. He's way better than I am, and he's staring at this dead body, and she walks up and goes, "If it makes you feel any better, I was eaten by a lion." And he literally, without a beat, goes, "Well, how would that make me feel better?" 30 minutes. We could not stop laughing about this because he literally, without a smile, without anything, just turned and looked at her and goes, "How would that make me feel better?"
Out of context game quotes is one of the best things, because
there should be a book on that.
I mean, difficult to put together, but I mean, it would be a worthwhile piece, because you're creating situations where that non sequitur, or that thing that just sounds in the moment, it makes perfect sense, but taken out of the context of the situation that you're in, it's so insane. It's so over the top. The number of times I have said, I don't think anyone has ever said that in the history of the English language while playing a game, is pretty high.
Yep.
For me, role playing, and then we're going to wrap this up. We got to go into our literary briefs. But for me, role playing is always funny, because especially if you listen and depending on who's gaming, because you have people, all different intellects that game with you, right? But I've had DMs go that you walk into a room and there are 6 identical sarcophagi, and have someone go, "Well, which one's the leader coffin?" The one that says leader on it. Did he not mention that? The big flashing sign that said, "This one's the leader."
One of the things that has for us is that I think is always interesting is we go to a lot of conventions and we run a lot of games for a lot of people. Like, so the number of people that I have like personally gamed with is very large, because I've been doing this for 25 years as a professional.
I like that you put "as a professional" on that.
Yes, I appreciate that tremendously.
The where I'm going to a lot of conventions, I'm running a lot of games, and I'm interacting with a lot of people. Like I'll have days where I'll run the same game 4 or 5 times for 4 or 5 different groups of 5 people. And it's funny you said sarcophagus, right? Like that's one of those words that I love, because you'll be surprised at how many nerds don't know what that is.
I don't think I'd be surprised. I think I'm more mortified that more nerds don't know what that is.
I'm surprised. That surprises me.
There's a bunch of words that I always like, and it's like I say this word that I think is very specific. Sepulcher.
Yeah.
Dais.
Oh, that I know.
Things are.
And then you're always like, it's like an altar with a stone coffin on it. And they're like, oh, that's what that is? Oh, okay. I mean, the really famous gaming story about that is the guy saying, you come across, you enter onto a field and there's a gazebo here. And the guy says, I draw my sword. Because he didn't know what a gazebo was, so he assumed it was a monster.
God.
That reminds me of that game. That's one of my favorite things. They shoot a magic missile in the darkness.
Oh,
yes.
Erica, we'll have to send you our video. Adriel and I have alter egos that are puppets. And we did Summoner Geeks, which is what that is, with our puppets.
I need this video immediately.
Yes.
Why
we can do that. It's I cast magic missile.
We do that. We did a reading of The Princess Bride, and Chris's favorite all-time quote from me, I think, is, "Oh, I think about Peter Falk every day."
That is not what you said. What you said was, "I think about Columbo every
You're
day."
Right. You're
and then
right.
it was like, yeah, Peter Falk was Columbo, and you were like,
What?
He
was?
Because you think about Columbo every day, which Adriel does, because every day Adriel has a moment.
Like, okay.
I'm gonna help you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like every day, Adriel has a moment where she just becomes Columbo, trying to exit a situation.
Yeah.
And even though they think every day about Columbo, they never once thought that Peter Falk, Columbo, was in The Princess Bride.
I didn't connect the two.
Never occurred to them, ever.
Yeah.
So which one's the leader coffin?
Which one is the leader coffin?
Exactly.
Oh my
Braid
gosh.
my hair.
Awesome.
Braid my hair.
Braid her hair. Braid her
Okay.
hair.
9th level games. Shameless self-promotion time. Tell people how to find you.
9thlevelgames.com. That's the numeral 9.
That's not correct. It's 9thlevel.com.
It's both, FYI. 9th Level Games redirects to 9thlevel.com. Both use the numeral 9 instead of spelled out. And
Our company's name is the number 9, THLEVEL. And if you put .com after that, you'll go right to us on the internet.
right. And you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, all under at 9th Level Games. And also 9thlevelgames.com works.
Effectively, all the socials at 9th Level Games.
Listen, she's had orange blossom water. I watched.
I
her
was just gonna
empty
say,
that
I wouldn't be
entire
messing with her.
container.
And we're on Instagram, and we're on TikTok, and we're on all of those
Yeah.
things. You can find us on all
and
of them.
YouTube.
The YouTubes.
Yep.
YouTubes. You're on the
We
top
have,
of the tubes. I appreciate it. You guys have been so much fun to have. You popped our
Yay.
gaming company cherry. Look, I said that. It's an adult podcast.
Ooh.
It's an adult podcast.
We just crossed over to mature content.
Yeah. Oh, that was
Surprisingly,
eons ago,
I think I've
Danielle.
only said
Eons.
fuck one time, and you even gave me the ability to say it.
Yeah.
Usually I'm fighting it. Usually it's like, hey, Chris, can we just keep that down? As a lifelong Philadelphian, it's very difficult for me to not pepper the conversation with swears.
Oh, I can't help myself. So that's how that goes.
It goes.
Okay, so this has been Drinking with Authors. I have been your host, Erica Lance. My amazing and beautiful co-host today is Danielle Orsino, the fairy goddess. Our guests today have been 9th Level Games. And, besides the whole Columbo thing at the end, they came off pretty cool, actually. Maybe we can edit that. We actually edited our stuff, which we don't. So you should like and subscribe to
That will
us.
wind up being your blurb, just so you know. I don't know.
Yes.
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk. Like and subscribe. You can
Skunk
leave
Brothers.
us a review of what you thought of 9th Level Games performance today, impromptu. And otherwise, we will see you guys next time.
Cheers.